Hello, Sigma Who here signing on, and we're going to be doing another building practice video, the second one. Now, unlike with the first video, this time around I'm not going to be doing a voiceover of a building process, or the building process, or my building process, or whatever, of a single individual build. Instead, I'm still doing a voiceover, but I'm going to be looking over several builds I've done or I'm in the process of doing, and I'm going to talk about those as well as some, tangents that are kind of related to techniques I've sort of learned a little bit, because it's been a while since the previous one, and I've changed a lot. I've gotten a heck of a lot better. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So first up, I want to talk about an art concept. I think the guy is Mark Burnett, I don't know, but he's the one who said this best, and I'm just going to kind of paraphrase what he said. You need a mental library of materials and shapes and different things that you need as a basis before you can start creating your own art effectively. And I think that's true to a degree. You need inspiration. You need to see how other people are doing things to figure out how you can do things. And so I went ahead and went to the World of Corral server, and here's kind of what I learned. Walls in 2 layers, an exterior layer and an interior layer. I had never done this. I hadn't seen this. It had never occurred to me. It completely blew my mind. This 2-layered wall building technique makes a huge impact on building because you can create an entirely different atmosphere within the building than the atmosphere that's on the exterior. And that was pretty big. The next thing I learned was scale. Scale is important in making a build feel, quote, right. For example, the bathroom shouldn't be bigger than the dining room in a build, right? It's wonky, and it makes the proportions of the house feel off, especially since we're trying to connect things constantly to how we're aware of them and what we're familiar with. So we don't want things that make people say, this doesn't feel quite right, unless we're doing it on purpose. But you need to know the rules before you can break them. So scale. There were also lots of elements of realism, speaking of scale, scattered throughout, and these are just kind of little touches I observed people adding to make builds more realistic, for example, smoke from a chimney and fish in a tank. Both of those things are kind of like animation or life. You want something moving in your build if possible. I did actually attempt a World of Corrales build in this style, but of course I couldn't really let go of the way I do things, and I attempted to create a realistic tea kettle or building. There are actually several teapot/kettle buildings I've found references for. Well, 3, not a whole lot, but the fact is they exist. And I thought it was a pretty cool build. It's a beautiful place in my opinion, and it's unfinished, but I think if I were to have finished it, it would have looked really cool. I just don't like this style for myself because it's not very fun. I'm just not sure why it doesn't feel right, but it doesn't. Do you remember last episode I put a bunch of random objects together to get an interesting shape instead of referencing realistic buildings? Well, I think this is kind of... the part I had the most fun with was putting all those shapes together. And I think that what I've learned from the server here is, referring to real buildings is helpful for detail, but I really don't like referencing realistic shapes. So I still prefer my less realistic building style, but these concepts that I've picked up on can really help me make things in a way that allows other people to connect their idea of a building to what I'm building, and how is it a building, how is it not a building, etc. Especially since I want to use more crazy shapes and more unrealistic shapes in the future for buildings. I just want to get less and less traditional with the idea of what a building is. So I kept this in mind with my prairie build, and I really tried with this one. As I mentioned, I'm not a fan of realistic builds, and I feel like I kind of rushed into this one. The main reason I was motivated to finish it is because it was a diagonal build, and I had never really done a diagonal build before, and it was also the first building that I had ever solidly planned out. Inside and out, everything except for some extremely minor details I tweaked at the end was all done and placed in my test world. And we had already established I like armor stands for interiors, but I needed to dial the entities way back, which is why I kind of tried to avoid that in this build. And I really developed some interior building muscles here. I got something going. This is where it started, and now I'm actually pretty good at interiors. It's one of the things I find myself looking forward to doing in builds now. So the next thing I kind of experimented with, because I just the complete opposite direction, was instead of trying to create realistic builds in Minecraft, was trying to create objects and turn those into builds. So I did a nightlight and I did a crystal ball. And I like both on the outside quite a bit, actually, but not so much the outside. And I still wanted to kind of go more crazy with the style of building I wanted to do, but I still felt at this point that I didn't know enough about real life buildings and the way construction works in the real world to apply anything of those elements to a Minecraft building that was less traditional. So I went ahead and tried to build a more cottage-esque style builds, because those are really popular, especially like medieval. I didn't really go medieval, but I did attempt to do something here in this server called Fallen SMP. I did try to work on a place called Bogberg, and I was really happy with how it was coming along, but unfortunately the seasons are really short, and I would just not have time to do anything I wanted to do. But back on good old UOM, the seasons are about a year there, so I've got plenty of time. And I've been slowly working on a similarly styled, but not the same type of base, where there's multiple buildings and smaller buildings that are more realistic. I'll admit the barn did get a little not what you would expect of a barn, but I'm trying here, okay? So currently I'm still in my cottage-esque phase, but only for a bit. I really want to finish this small town in this style, and then I want to get back to doing things that I enjoy more, but I do think that this has been valuable to highlight a weakness of mine, which is roofs. I am very bad at roofs, and I'm already looking back into shape amalgamation, but there's a few things that I've learned from this as well. And interior practice and, in general, interior and narrow spaces is something that I've become a deft hand at. Roof shape is something I've gotten creative with, and I've learned how to break up the monotonous feel of some of the more traditional roofs. And I've noticed with myself personally, I like to use a combination of 2-layer walls and 1-layer walls, and I seem to mix them, so I've been working on the transitions between that and some builds. And I think after this, I will have all of the tools and the knowledge that I need at the moment to kind of work more effectively on the buildings I want to create and make those decent. And now I can look back at building practice 1 structure, and I can do better than that, and I can kind of identify what I liked about it, what I didn't, what I was doing, even if I didn't know what I was doing. Like I've got names to faces, except instead of faces is building techniques, and I'm pretty happy with where I'm going at the moment. I feel like these are the tools that I've started. This is the tools I need for my primary toolkit to kind of develop the style that I jive with, and I need to kind of work on expanding the capabilities of the tools I already have before I do another round of looking for new tools. So as of right now, that's where I am. Here's something I've been working on that I'm quite happy that I've started applying my new knowledge to. And well, that's it for now. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. This has been Sigma Who, and I'm signing off.